Hello everybody and welcome to my first build guide for Last Epoch. I hope you guys are as excited about this as I am. I have been enjoying Last Epoch quite a bit recently. I really like the direction the game has gone. I feel like the team that's been working on Last Epoch is doing a fantastic job. Honestly, years ago, I spoke to Judd a long time ago. I mean, it was really a long time ago, probably over 6 years ago or close to. And that's when the game was like in its early stages. Like it was brand new. It was something they were working on. And he told me about this game. So anyway, I'm really glad to see the direction the game has gone, and I'm glad to see that it has built up a fan and follower base over the years. So really glad to see that. Just wanted to say that first. Also, I'd like to preface by saying that I don't look up build guides. I try not to, and if somebody wants to, that's fine. I try to play test everything, and I just enjoy playing the game that way. I don't have a link to this build for a website or anything like that yet. I do know there is a website you can do all that on. I do plan on doing that at some point. I just haven't had the time to set that up yet. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to highlight and go over the gear itself. You can pause the video if you'd like. We'll go over the passives and then the skills, and then we'll do some gameplay to kind of show you guys how it works. So right now I'm using two Beast King axes. I really like these. Obviously you get some of the flat melee, the flat physical melee, which is really nice. You get the bleed, attack speed's really nice. There's actually kind of a cool little mechanic on this weapon. So you get 8% less damage taken if your minions have killed recently, which probably won't happen too often for you in this build. You could set it up that way if you wanted to. But what's also nice is your minions take 25% less damage if you have killed recently, which is something you're going to be doing quite a bit. So I do like that this procs and it keeps your minions, giving them some damage reduction helps you keep them alive. I don't know if these two stack. Like I said, I'm still learning some things in the game and how it works, so I'm not sure if they stack, but if they do, great. We use it for a lot of other reasons, though. I'm using this chest piece right now. I know the base chest armor probably could be better, but the rolls on this were pretty darn decent, so I decided to keep it for now. And I do get some movement speed, which isn't bad. Ideally, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to stack strength where we can. We're trying to stack physical damage where we can. We're trying to get our resistances where we need them. Critical strike avoidance where you might need it. Any attack speed where you might need it. And basically, those are the essential stats we're kind of looking for. Go over the idols real quick. Alright, so those are going to be the items. Let me go over the passives real quick. So I am running 2 out of 6 on Gift of the Wilderness, just for a little bit extra health right now. I do know my health needs to be higher. I want to go ahead and state that this build is not complete or finalized by any means. There's a lot of room for this build to grow. 8 out of 8 on Primal Strength, 1 into Harmony of Blades, 5 out of 5 on Hunter's Restoration, again for some health. Survival of the Pack, this will give us a little more melee damage, and melee damage leeches health, and as well for your minions, which I kind of like. Go over to Beastmaster, 8 out of 8 on Earthsign Strength, 4 out of 5 on Boarheart, 3 out of 8 on Tusk Warrior. The reason why I'm running Tusk Warrior is it's kind of nice because that Bleed Chance proc actually works with spells and melee attacks, so that's kind of a nice little nuance mix there. I kind of think that's neat. And then you still get physical damage, which is kind of cool. I might pump that up more at some point. I'm not sure yet. 5 out of 5 on Porcine Constitution. And then we have 5 out of 5 on Boarheart. This whole line is just really strong. If you play Druid, honestly, it's really hard pressed and very difficult not to take these. I mean, especially in this row right here, up to Earthsign Strength, all the way over to the Boarheart. It's just very powerful. You get so much damage reduction. This gives you a chance to proc Aspect of the Boar on melee hit, which is really good with this build. I have 4 out of 5 on Axe and Claw. Again, I might switch some of this around. Running 7 out of 7 on Chitinous Plating, 7 out of 7 on Druidic Prowess, 5 out of 5 on Focus Wrath. The reason why I did pump this higher is because you do get some damage out of it while transformed. However, there are certain modifiers you can get sometimes that really make you struggle with retaining rage, so this kind of helps with that a little bit. It helps you retain your rage, it doesn't drain as quickly. If you get into a monolith where the enemies have a lot of crit avoidance, like multiple rolls of crit avoidance, it can be kind of rough trying to sustain rage with this setup. So it is kind of nice to be able to sustain a little bit with that. 3 out of 5 on Wind of the Leaves. In the Leaves, not of the Leaves. Anyway, Bush Stalker is 3 out of 5, and then we have 8 out of 10 on Aspect of Might. So this will convert into more melee damage for us while we're in Stormblade form. But Strength also does inherently boost armor, so it's nice. It's kind of like a little bit of an offensive and defensive node. Force of Nature is 8 out of 10. Again, more melee physical. Some spell physical, which isn't awful. Woodland Beings, 1 point, just so we can get over here to Natural Duality. I do like this one for a 1-pointer. It just boosts companion health, helps your companion stay alive. And it also gives you increased damage and armor while you have a companion, so it's not bad at all. Armor is very powerful with the setup, so we try to stack it as much as possible. And then we have 8 out of 10 on Rageborn, so this is going to be obviously more crit chance, and then Rage Gain on crit, which is really good. I'm running 5 out of 5 on Impervious right now. This might change at some point. With the dodge capabilities of the bug build, any bug build can basically stack dodge really well, just inherently through skills and passes. So it will reduce how many times you get hit. And I'm not entirely sure on the wording on this. I know it says on hit, basically you lose a stack, or when you get hit. So I'm assuming that's any hit. So like any melee hit, any spell hit. I don't know if dots count in that category, but anyway. Overall, it's been working pretty good. Obviously, I want to get some hide skin, so I might switch some stuff around there. But those are the passives. So let's go over the skills real quick. Obviously, we're running Stormblade. I have 3 out of 5 on Locust Agility, got 4 out of 4 on Water Strider. I wish I had more points to put points elsewhere, honestly, because there's so many good things. I have 1 point in Wasp Flight, just a little more extra attack and cast speed. We have 5 out of 5 on Death by 1,000 Wings, so this is really neat. So basically, Armblade Bleed Chance, which is going to be like your standard melee attack in bug form, is going to be increased by 100%. The Dive Bleed Chance is 500%, which is kind of cool. So if you dive into a group of enemies, it just automatically puts essentially 5 stacks of bleed on everything that you dive into, and that can be really nice, and I'll show you that here in a minute when we do some play testing. And then we have Locust Bleed Chance is increased by 100% as well, so your Locust will apply a bleed. So this is where this build gets really interesting to me, the Bloodlust Swarm. It says when you create a Locust Swarm with Storm Strike, you consume all stacks of bleed from enemies hit by it, causing the swarm to deal increased damage in a larger area per stack of bleed consumed. So more or less what this does is if you have bleed stacks on a bunch of enemies in an area, or like 100 bleed stacks on a boss and the locusts are all around that boss, and you use your Storm Strike and Locust Swarm, and if you consume all the locusts in the area plus hit the boss with the bleed stacks on them, it'll remove all the bleed stacks off of that boss or that target or group or whatever, and then it'll boost the Locust Swarm damage by 50% per bleed that you consumed. So this is really crazy because inherently, on average, you can get like 1,000 to like 2,000 damage per second with your Locust Swarm. But I've gotten it up to like 8 to 10,000 per tick, depending on how many stacks I had and how many targets that I hit when I consume the bleed stacks. So this is kind of a double dip kind of mechanic in a way, because if you rip the bleed stacks off of a boss or like a beefy target, and then you start to hit them again immediately, and start stacking bleed back up on them, they start taking bleed dot damage, plus the Locust Swarm is just doing a ton of like dot tick damage as well. It is under the dot category. So the Swarm can't crit from what I've seen because it is under the damage over time category, but it doesn't really matter when it's doing anywhere from like 2 to like 10,000 damage per tick. So totally fine in my opinion. It's a lot of fun. 1 point in Viper's Call, so this just makes it to where we get bonuses on Serpent Strike with our right click or main attack on the bug form, which is the, what is it called? Sorry, I don't remember what it's called. Basically the standard auto attack in bug form. You get perks from the Serpent Strike as well, so that's why we take that up there. Endless Pressure, this is really good. This just gives you health and rage gain when you hit a rare or a boss enemy, and it works on your Locust as well, so this is really, really nice. We have 1 point into Tornado. We have 1 point into Earth Stinger. 1 into Needle-like Sting, and I might try to pump that higher at some point, maybe. So the way this game works, and I didn't know this when I first started playing it, but basically, the higher your base crit is, the better the increased percent crit value is, right? So essentially think of like flat damage with percent damage. So if your flat damage inherently is like high or good, then percent damage becomes more valuable. So if you have like a flat 100 fire damage on hit, and you have 100% increased fire damage, it essentially turns into 200 flat fire damage on hit, right? I believe that's how the calculations work. So it's essentially kind of the same thing with crit in a way. When your base crit is high, your percent increased crit becomes more valuable. Because base crit starts at 5%, I believe. So if you had 5% base crit with 100% increased crit chance, 100% of 5 would be another 5, right? So it'd be 10% crit chance with 100% increased crit chance. But if you had 10% base crit chance, and 100% increased crit chance stat, that 10 becomes 20. Essentially just doubles your crit chance, which is really nice. Grasshopper's Frenzy. This is really nice as well. You just gain rage when you or your locust critically hit. So again, we're stacking a little bit of crit in this build just so we can get that rage gain and sustain our rage as much as possible. Going into Spriggan, Summon Spriggan. Summon Spriggan is very strong, honestly. Like, there's a lot of nodes in here that are just crazy. We have 3 out of 5 on Aura of Life. We basically just use that to get down further into the tree. 1 out of 4 on Aura of Loyalty, same thing, just kind of moving along. Aura of Evasion, your Spriggan's Healing Word now also grants allies additional dodge rating per point of your attunement. This effect is doubled on minions. So this isn't bad for a 1 point. Obviously, the higher your attunement is, the more dodge you get, so that's not a terrible thing. Or Kinship just gives flat spell damage. We don't really entirely care about that, but we had to put 2 to move over here. And this is Aura of Retribution, so this gives you 8% base crit chance, and it gives you 72% crit avoidance. So again, very powerful. It's a very, very strong buff that this little pet provides. And then we have 5 out of 5 on Arboreal Vitality, so this just boosts the Spriggan health more. And then we have 4 out of 5 on the Warding Bark, so this gives Spriggan basically lots of flat armor and physical resistance. Helps it stay alive. Coming over to Serpent Strike, so this is the one that will scale with your Arm Blade Slash, I think it's called. We have 3 out of 3 on Culling Point. This is really powerful. It's just basically an execute. Once the target gets to the 18% threshold, it'll kill the target when you're hitting them. 3 out of 3 on Slither. Slither is really good. It's just going to ramp our dodge whenever we're hitting enemies. 5 out of 5 on Gouging Spear for the bleed chance. Swirling Carnage is also really good, so we get bleed chance per Maelstrom increase, and we get damage over time increase per Maelstrom Strike as well. We have 3 out of 3 on Hydra Strikes for more attack speed. We have 5 out of 5 on Corrosive Venom. Now, I don't think Armor Shred or Pin affects the bleed damage itself, but I do think it still affects all other on-hit sources of damage. And honestly, I could maybe move those points somewhere else. Like if I wanted to come over here and pick up Shroud of Winter, you know, I could basically get more dodge rating through this. However, this then would convert the damage into cold on the Serpent Strike, so I don't know if that'd be the way to go, because I'm doing a lot of physical and bleed, and as it is currently physical. And if I convert it to cold, I think it makes my Arm Blade Slash cold, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so I need to check into that. Alright, so we got Maelstrom, we got 4 to 4 on Whirlpool, 1 out of 5 on Turbulence, 2 out of 4 on Calm, 1 into Windswept, and 1 into Wind Fury. Going this route is usually ideal. Like, you want to try to get to the Windswept and Wind Fury as soon as possible. They're very strong. 3 out of 3 on Sleet Footed, so this is, again, going to help us with dodge. It gives us flat dodge per stack of Maelstrom. Really good. I have 1 into the Power of the Storm, 3 into Strong Tides, 1 into Energize. The reason why we do this is because the Maelstrom itself cannot crit, but the lightning proc, like the little lightning bolts from Maelstrom, they can crit. So that will help us generate rage, which I kind of like. Don't really care about the damage entirely, but it is good for that. So we got 1 point in the Cyclone, converts it into physical, and we have 2 out of 4 on Essence of Debris. Now, probably could go more points into this. You just get more stun chance, and stun chance is not bad. It's another defensive layer to some degree. Any way to CC enemies is going to be essentially or theoretically a defensive layer in itself, which is kind of nice. So come on over here to Tornado. We have 1 into Aspect of the Storm, 3 out of 3 on Storm Dervish, 2 out of 5 on Swift Wings, 1 into Charged Storm, 4 out of 4 on Frequent Lightning. So this is the same thing. Basically, this lightning is going to proc from the Tornado, and those lightning procs crit and help generate rage, which is nice. Lasting Storm, increases the duration of Tornado. Hurricane, 4 to 4, 4 to 4 on Lasting Storm as well. And then we have 1 into Eye of the Storm. So basically the Tornado just stays attached to you and just moves around with you when you're running around hitting things. Alright, so that's all the skills. That's everything, I think. So let's get into a monolith real quick. I'm at Corruption 152 right now in this area, so nothing like too crazy. But I haven't struggled with anything so far. So let's get into some gameplay, and I'll kind of talk about what I'm trying to do here. So essentially you want to throw down your hives, start stacking bleed, and then honestly on trash mobs you don't have to like set and ramp and stack too high. But as you can see, the AoE dot from the Swarm, it's already doing like almost 2,000 damage just from that little group that I consumed the bleed stacks on. So you don't, you know, for trash, you don't really have to like try to ramp it up perfectly. You know, you just want to basically get in there, hit some things, use your Storm Strike, and then proc the big AoE. And really, realistically, you can just kind of run around at that point. Most of the time, most trash will die if you get the stacks high enough. Anything that's a little beefier, you know, you can stop and try to bleed stack up and then move on. But once I get to like a boss or a beefier target, you'll see where the build really starts to kind of shine. It's a ramping build, obviously. That's kind of how it's designed, but I think it's fun. I'm totally fine with that. So we can kind of do it here. So we can start stacking on this thing here. Get to about 100 blade stacks and then consume them. And you can see the damage just ramps really high. And it just blows it up pretty quick. Because at that point, we're getting the damage over time from the Locust Swarm, and then we're also getting the bleed stacks doing dot damage and ramping up as well. So we're kind of double dipping on those two things. And as always, if you guys have any questions, definitely ask in the comments below. Any suggestions as well are always appreciated. Got a couple drops there. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's essentially how the build works. In the future, I will display doing like boss fights and Shades of Orbis, things like that, just to show you how it works. A lot of times, so far, you can basically just kind of stand and tank everything as far as bosses and stuff go too. But yeah, there you have it. Get our rewards. Alright guys, so if you did enjoy the video, I would greatly appreciate it if you did like and subscribe. It helps the channel out immensely, and thank you so much for everybody who has continued to support me over the years. It is greatly appreciated, and I hope everyone's doing well. And as always, I will see everybody next time.